You guys
hold
ready?
on.
And where it says select the camera, I guess make sure it says surface camera front.
Are we good on
He said yes.
our fellow council members and the town administrator? Hour is 1:01 or 1:02. I would like to call the special call meeting to order. Would the town clerk please read the roll?
Mayor Belt,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Brenner,
Here.
Mr. Farrell,
Here.
Mr. Heidingsfelder,
Here.
Ms. Kay,
Here.
Ms. Tillerson,
Here,
Mr. McClellan.
Thank you. The first agenda item is citizen comments. We'll invite people in the room to offer comments on the agenda item, which is a discussion of mediation regarding zoning matters. I would also note that we've received several written comments, and those will be included in the record. Any comments from citizens? Mr. Spencer.
Hi, my name's Lance Spencer. I live at 40 Sunlit Bend in Inlet Cove. The agenda item on mediation for zoning rights, I know you're going to go into executive session, but I suspect that's about the developments along Beachwalker. Is that correct?
It's to receive, as noted in the agenda, advice of counsel regarding pending litigation.
Okay. If I could just make some comments. First of all, thank you all.
Well,
for-
that is both the executive session item, but we also have a separate agenda item, which is the discussion of the mediation of zoning matters.
Okay,
So
thanks.
that would include Beachwalker-related developments.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Bell. And first of all, thank you, members of council, for your service to our community. I know how much time you put in, and I probably don't even fully appreciate that, so thank you for that. And knowing that this is going to be going into executive session, I don't have all the facts and the considerations that are probably going to be explored when you go into that. But I would like to speak as a property owner, a full-time resident, and a voter. There's various ordinances and agreements in place, and they're intended to, in my mind, to generate a harmonious community and keep balance within the community and protect all property owner rights. As a property owner who's impacted by pending developments, I want to make sure that I express my views that as the council is considering future actions, that they represent property owners that could potentially be impacted along the way. We're literally downstream for potential impacts of development. Staying to the agreement that I believe everybody agreed to helps protect property owners like me. The adjacent community probably has about 250 homes involved, and I'm not representing them. I'm representing myself, but I'm very familiar with sentiment of quite a few of those homeowners. And there are concerns that there will be runoff problems, stormwater problems, traffic problems, already the way the agreements are in place and the ordinances are in place. And allowing potential mediation to increase the impact on infrastructure could have impacts to our residents as well. So we want to make sure we have the full enjoyment and benefit of our properties, and our properties are protected from potential taking as well. One thing that, as we've talked about this, in the last more than a year, that was a big concern is traffic, from future development. One thing I don't think I fully appreciated, but I'm seeing now, is the implications of having a club as part of developments. We're not just seeing residents increasing in traffic, we're seeing big giant Cisco trucks and things like that going down Duneside. So when we're out walking our dog, big semis are pulling in to take, supplies to the clubs, so the club that exists now. So anyway, those are all just considerations. Two last thoughts. One, I believe there's an administrative process for variance requests, and that it goes through the Board of Zoning Appeals. And it doesn't seem like the administrative processes that the town runs by have been fully exhausted yet. So I'd hope you would consider that as you're deliberating. The other thing is that, allowing one party to mediate compliance, I think opens a slippery slope. I mean, I'd like to mediate some compliance too, potentially down the road. And as an individual homeowner, I think I should have same standing as a developer when it comes to that. So those are my thoughts. I appreciate your time and consideration, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor Bell and Town Council members, and thank you for your service. My name is Warren Lash. I live at 256 Grass Garden Lane in Cassique. I'm the president of the Cassique Homeowners Association, and I'm here representing 230 Kiowa Island Club members who reside in Cassique. We have been following the ongoing discussions regarding the Cape Beach Club with a great interest. For years, our residents have been anticipated this facility and have been promised an amenity, this amenity, to enhance our community. We respect the town's responsibility to enforce zoning regulations, but we believe there's room for a compromise that addresses the town's concerns while also allowing the club to open. The current impasse affects not only club members, but also the broader community of Kiowa, which includes Cassique. We respectfully urge the council to consider granting a conditional certificate of occupancy. This would allow for the club's opening while ensuring all parties work together to address outstanding issues. Our HOA is willing to assist implementing temporary solutions to alleviate any immediate concern. As community members invested in Kiowa's long-term success, we believe there is an amicable solution, not only possible, but it's also essential. It would showcase our town's ability to balance development with community interests, enhancing Kiowa's reputation as a premier coastal destination. Thank you for your time and consideration. We are committed to contributing to a constructive solution that benefits all of Kiowa, and reassure you of our cooperation and dedication to the community's well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lash. Appreciate it. Other comments? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm David Raffel. I live at 45 Burroughs Hall with my wife Karen, and we're brand new full-time residents to Kiowa Island and have become aware that there is some dispute on the Cape Club, or the beach club there. And I think we understand very well the developer's position on the issue. We feel like we're uninformed on the city's position on the issue. We've tried to avail ourselves of all available communication. Maybe we're missing something, but certainly would like you in this meeting to direct us to your position. And if I could frame up my question as clearly as possible is, if you could compel the developer to do X or a series of X specifically, what is it you're looking for them to do? I understand there's dispute about 88 parking spaces, and there seems to be some constraints on how to provide those. But again, specifically, what is it, what would solve it if you could? I'd like to understand that point. That's my comment, and thank you for letting me make it. I would also like to fully endorse the eloquent statement by Mr. Lash. I think it matched my own.
Thank you,
and my
Mr.
wife's.
Raffel.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Yes, my name is Blake Darche, 181 Yellow Throat. So I think this entire matter raises a lot of questions about what the town initially approved and what has occurred as a result of that approval. If I contact a government and seek permits to do X, and I do X and the town approves that, that is a problem if the town changes its mind later. That is a property rights ownership issue where the town's now coming in and saying, well, no, you can't do this, you need to do this. What about all the residents on the island that have homes? Is the town gonna change their mind on some other zoning thing and make people change their roof lines? Where does this end? The town, if they approve a zoning plan, needs to stick to the plan approved. I don't know why on earth we would be having decisions of, oh, well, this was approved, Now this is not approved. That can't be the way government works. That makes citizens question government, and it should not be the case. In fact, I would tell you heads need to roll at this town. People that approve this, if they're not happy with the way it was approved, those people should be relieved of their position. At the end of the day, citizens should not bear the brunt of the town's mistakes. And that's what this is. We have a town that probably made a mistake in zoning, approved what a developer said, and now is unhappy with the outcome of that. We, the citizens of this island, should not be responsible for that. And that is the crux of this issue. It needs to be resolved by this town, and it needs to not happen in the future because it makes government non-functional. We can't have people building structures and then changing their mind about heights, variances, all this stuff when the thing's already built. That doesn't work, and it's not fair to the developer. It's not fair to the homeowners. It's not fair to anyone on the island, and it creates divisiveness on the island. And I just think this needs to stop. We need to get a handle on this and avoid these mistakes in the future. With the current issue, the town has already said, I read all the documents in the lawsuit, they greenlighted it all. You are responsible for these decisions. You need to stick with what you approved. Otherwise, why should anyone respect any permit the town issues? That is the crux of the problem here. And it's extremely disturbing that the town has literally changed its mind back and forth on things. When I read the documents very clearly, you greenlit that project. That is a problem. It needs to be solved by the town. It's not fair to owners at the Cape. It's not fair to regular Kiawah Island Club members. It's not fair to citizens that live on a road. Maybe not enough analysis was done by the town. Like, this is failed government 101, and it shouldn't happen. And it shouldn't happen on Kiawah Island. It shouldn't happen anywhere. And that is the crux of the problem, and it needs to be fixed.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Mike Tattersfield. We're brand new residents of the Cape at 5142. I appreciate everybody's comments and where they are thinking about land and the opportunity. You can imagine as new Cape owners, we're pretty frustrated with the process. We joined a club, promises were made. We come into the club, it is not being delivered. There is a challenge of parking. It should be solved. I think somebody eloquently talked about parking, solve the parking gap. What I think is the problem is potentially future development, and I'm unaware of all the future development that's going on, a little bit surprised. But if it's being linked to future development, the parking problem, they should be actually cut apart. So if you have a parking issue, solve that. If there's some lot one issue that's independent of that, that's a different discussion. That's already been approved, and I think you're held accountable to that, but that's where I would kind of, there's nothing, and I can't represent the other 78 Cape owners, but we signed under a deal. This is what we want the deal to kind of deliver. There's a few other issues, but I'm not going to compound that with a development of that. We're talking about the Cape. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Additional comments? Yes.
Council, thank you for your time. I, as the previous guy, as
Could
my
you
wife-
please state your name for the record?
I'm sorry. My name is Joseph Boggs. I'm a Cape resident. My wife Celeste in Building 1. And we've been involved in the project since the land was cleared. By way of background, I'm a professional architect, 40 years with a practice in the greater DC area and registered in South Carolina and 10 other states. And I have a great deal of experience in projects much more complicated than this, much more complex in terms of permitting, and have a great deal of experience in that level, also doing major international projects. So I know a lot about how this process should work. What you may not know, I agree with a lot of the comments been made here. Concessions been made. I've never met a developer in 40 years that would agree to the concessions that Kiowa Island Club partners have agreed to without going to court. So they've agreed to concessions to build this $2 or $3 million parking lot across the street in good faith. But the problem I see, and I think where it gets in the question of being punitive, is you're restricting them from actually opening the club, the restaurant that creates the revenue to pay for that. So on the one hand, you talked them into concessions after the fact, after a valid permit was issued, which should not have been a menu to change things. I agree with the previous couple of comments. But once the concessions are made, and it's going to take a year or so to build that, you're punishing the developer because you won't allow him to open the restaurant to create the very revenue that could pay for it. So if you want your concessions, you shouldn't punish the people that are giving them to you. Not to speak of all of the residents of the Cape, has been previously mentioned, as well as the gentleman from Cacique. These are all great points. The other thing that you got to understand is the damage that's being done. It's like Newton's third law. If we tried to sell our condo unit right now, we would probably take a 7-figure hit, because any person buying it that's sophisticated would say, wait a minute, I can't use this, I can't use the cottages, the restaurant's empty, you're in major litigation with the city, which could take years and millions of dollars, of legal fees, and that could come into the HOA requirements, and we'd have to pay that. We're not buying this thing. This thing's trouble. This thing's toxic. So if you take 78 units and you take $1 million off the value of every one of those, that's $78 million of damages that could come your way because we can't sell our unit. What you don't know about the Cape that I think could solve the problem is that there's only 10 full-time families at the Cape. We're one of them. There's 6 buildings and 10 families, okay? In the weekends, I walk around looking for people. There's nobody there. There's maybe one person in the pool. The restaurant only has 5 tables. So we have 148 parking spaces that are mostly under the buildings. Okay, these spaces cost $28,000 a piece to build. All right, so on the average, our building is 31 spaces. So in the last 90 days, the average amount of cars in my building is 5, even over the 4th of July weekend. Building 2, empty. If you council members walk down through the Cape, there's no one there. There's no one in the parking garages. So you've got one of the most sophisticated developer partners in the country, Kiowa Partners. You've got East West developer, premier developer across the country. World-class people that can allow the PGA Championship to come here with thousands of people and cars, and it gets accommodated. You've got Freshfields that have all these events, and the parking gets accommodated. So we got a little restaurant with 5 tables, and we got 148 spaces on the property. It seems to me that a reasonable, fair thing, an equitable thing to do would is say, Kiowa, listen, valet these people in the empty spaces when the unit owners aren't there for their couple hours of dinner, or take them somewhere else. That's your problem. You handle it. And we'll give you a temporary occupancy permit until the structure's built across the street, which you have agreed to. Everybody wins. There's nothing to mediate, really, because you can't punish someone who's you demanded a concession from and punish the 78 residents, not to speak of the rest of the Cacique and the rest of the Kiowa thing. So the issue is, at some point, to the previous fellow's comments, when you go like this, you're weaponizing the permit process, and the public trust starts to fail. If the word got out that the town of Kiowa permit process is rogue, has gone rogue, your legacy and the town's legacy and reputation will be trash. If you think that the senior citizen facility across from Ando Inn, what are they thinking? Are they going to come knocking on our door? What about the development next to Freshfields? Are they going to say, well, we got a permit, we think? So as soon as the public trust is off of what you've approved, it really becomes a slippery slope, because not only can you ask for the concessions of the more parking, what's next? What's to keep you from saying, well, now we need more landscaping. Oh, by the way, we want solar on all your roofs. So, and if it's even a residential building, the guy does a house and you decide, well, we don't like screen porches anymore. They affect birds, so you can't use your screen porch. The building permit is the only stable thing in a development and construction project. Everything else is an invariable: weather, staffing, procurement, cost, everything. The one thing that starts a project to be funded is the building permit. That entitles you to do something, okay? The inspector comes, what's he look at? The building permit drawings. That's the only constant. Once that has no validity, everything is out of control. So what I implore you to think about is make this simple. You've got a great relationship with Kiowa Partners and their history. This place is run as well as Disney World, okay? You say to them, if you can handle a PGA championship, traffic, trash, everything, have your valet people take care of your 50 cars or something that come once in a while, either inside the buildings or outside, or work out something on your own other properties, and operate your restaurant and get that done. Build a thing across the street as agreed as soon as you can, and everybody wins. There's no bad news here. There's no reason to go into litigation, because if you do go into litigation, you will lose, and this one piece of litigation, I've read it all, will be the tip of the iceberg, because if you lose that one, you're going to get another one, probably from the Cape people. So it's not something you want to do. It's not in anybody's best interest, and there's a solution. There's 148 spaces empty, more or less, on site. There's not a Cape owner I know that would say, I'm not going to be here for 3 months. It's okay if you take my space and use it for a couple hours with your valet while he's going to the restaurant. Because you're managing it. Kiowa's managing these people. It's not people coming off the street. These are people coming in, going to the restaurant, going to the beach, pick up their car, just like you go to a nice hotel. You hand them keys, they go somewhere with it, come back when you want. Give Kiowa Partners the benefit of the doubt that they can handle that small problem. That's all we're asking. That's all I think you should do. And I'm happy to meet with any of you and work out the logistics of that and how that could work if for no cost if necessary. But please don't make this in something that's going to hurt the reputation of this town council and the town of Kiowa, because I'm promising you, if the word gets out that the town of Kiowa can't be trusted and the integrity of the council and your approvals cannot be honored, you can't come back from that. You'll never come back from that. So I respectfully submit that when you go to the executive council meeting, you come back and say, let's talk about this temporary permit and move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Box.
Thank you.
Any other citizen comments? Yes, please. Thank you. You really don't want me to read this?
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Haggerty. I live at 505 Bufflehead.
I've been a practicing attorney for 45 years. I learned as a young lawyer that the only good file is a closed file. I respectfully suggest that you submit this matter to mediation. You gentlemen know the facts better than anyone here. The only people who benefit from litigation such as this are the lawyers. 95% of cases settle. This case will settle. It should settle sooner rather than later. You should spend your money on a professional mediator and bring all sides into one room and keep them in the room until the matter is resolved. Spend your money on mediation, don't spend your money on attorneys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Haggerty.
Jim.
Additional citizen comments? Thank you all for that input. It certainly, the council's been onboarding these comments and many others that we've received. Just a few initial remarks. I first want to reiterate 4 points that I and the council have made over the last 2 or 3 council meetings. And I appreciate that not everybody comes to council meetings and not everybody avails themselves of the opportunity to watch council meetings. So the message doesn't get out as broadly as it might. But the first point is the town has repeatedly expressed its willingness to sit down with the applicant, the developer, Kiowa Partners, to see what issues can be resolved regarding not just the parking, but other zoning disputes that are outstanding. The second point that I would reiterate that we've made repeatedly is parking has certainly gotten the lion's share of the tension, and that's understandable because it's something that kind of people can see, react to, and understand. But the parking issues are just one issue amongst many that have been involved in the various site plan applications. And for better or for worse, the parking issues related to the Cape are inextricably intertwined, or at least they have been heretofore, with site plan approvals sought for Ocean Pines across the street and other site plan approvals. So it hasn't been just about parking. Anybody who's interested could look at the comments issued by the planning director. I believe they were on June 3rd, that were a culmination or basically pulling together comments that had been sent to the applicant going back over a period of months into last year. The third point is, as much as people might like it to be otherwise, much as I or fellow council members might like it to be otherwise, neither the zoning administrator, the planning director, nor the council has the unilateral authority to simply waive applicable zoning standards. If a zoning standard's applied, if it's on the books, it's there for the benefit of all property owners. There is a process by which an aggrieved property owner can try to get relief or redress from that zoning standard, and that's filing a variance request with the Board of Zoning Appeals. That is the standard statutory process for addressing zoning matters. For reasons that are not entirely clear to me, at least heretofore, and I'll get to that point in a moment, the applicant had chosen not to go down the administrative processes set forth under state law and municipal ordinances. I would also we've also mentioned that there is a statutory process available under, again, set forth under state law that provides a mechanism for essentially mandatory mediation and resolution of outstanding zoning disputes. So in fact, the parties can come together and resolve differences with zoning standards and then say, actually, in this case, this zoning standard won't apply. We've agreed to this. That's a process approved by the court and subsequently by a town council. Now, stepping back from that, the last, earlier this week, there were 2 separate lawsuits filed by the developer. One of those lawsuits, the town was the defendant. In another of those lawsuits, both the town was a defendant as well as 3 HOAs, 250 homeowners. In interest of full disclosure, I'm one of those 250 homeowners that is a defendant in that second lawsuit, in addition to being a defendant as the town. Now, there's been a lot of reaction to the lawsuit, the claim that was filed, the complaint that was filed by the developer. Suffice it to say that that's one side of the story. It's a very well told side of the story, and the developer is represented by extraordinarily competent counsel. And there's a set of facts there that people have assumed are the totality of the relevant facts. There's references to law that people have assumed are the totality of the law. All I can tell you at this point in time, because we're not going to litigate this matter in the press, as perhaps some others have done, is that there are two sides to every story, both with respect to the law and the facts. And the town at every turn has been represented by extraordinarily able counsel as well with regard to the decisions it has made. Having said all of that, I want to return to point number one, and that's the reason we're here today, is the town has evinced and has continued to evince a willingness to sit down with the developer and resolve all these issues. To that end, and the facts here and the timeline of these facts will probably surprise some people, but earlier this last month, these two gentlemen, the town attorneys, were directed to reach out to the applicant and their attorney and to see if there was an interest in entering into a mediation process to address outstanding issues. There was receptivity to that. Further to that, there was over a couple of weeks discussion amongst the lawyers regarding who should be the mediator. There had to be agreement, it had to be mutually acceptable, had to agree on a date that everybody who might be involved in the mediation was available. There needed to be some discussion of the scope of the mediation, what would be on the table. The reason we've called this meeting today, we were waiting till that process was finalized, is that there's a mediation that commences next week, starting on Wednesday, to try to begin to address these issues. We're going to sit down and talk about them. My own personal view is that many of these issues are eminently resolvable. There continue to be ongoing discussions between the applicant and the planning staff, for example, with regard to how you appropriately calculate the required number of parking spaces. It gets a little technical, and I'm learning that, whether you include stairwells or bathrooms in the calculation, but that kind of stuff is easily resolvable. The town is going to go into this process with good faith in an effort to try to see what we can solve for. It's certainly Cape-related parking issues are part of that. Other aspects of the Ocean Pines, Cape Point Road, as well as Upper Beach Walk or the West End site plans may be folded into that. I do not believe it's going to include anything with regard to Captain Sam Spit, but other matters will be on the table. We may or may not come to agreement on any or all issues, but I'm hopeful, and again, we go in this with good faith, that the key issues that people have talked about are solvable and can be addressed. Now, understand what this is and what is not. This is not. This mediation process is not court-ordered mediation. It's not the statutory pre-litigation mediation, but nonetheless, we should, I hope, be able to come to some agreement on a path forward, resolution perhaps of some issues, and then a path forward how to address other issues in a legally bindable way. There has a sound legal foundation to pursue that. So that's where we are now. Stay tuned. That's all I can say at this point in time. We've been waiting to tell the community, but there had to be some additional details coming to the table. One other thing I forgot to note that's critically important and is part of this process that I alluded to previously is that the applicant this last week finally did file a variance request. So now we're down the path of the administrative process that is necessary as well. So I think we're on a good path. Now we can just sit down and talk and see if we can resolve that issues. With that, my fellow council members, Mayor Pro Tem Berner.
Just one very quick comment. So, Mr. Haggerty, I come from a construction litigation background, and I share your comments to the T. I often would tell my clients that 95% of the disputes are solvable in mediation, and I actually have that track record. I have no reason to think that's not going to happen here. I think it will, and we're going down that path starting next week. So I have a very positive outlook. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Farrell.
I hesitate to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I would ask that everybody, you talked about trust in your public servants. You don't necessarily have to trust us, but just understand our lawyers have advised us not to say certain things until certain things happen. And we don't want to get in front of any process that's out there. And so while somebody may say they understand what's going on, I can assure you, you probably don't have all the facts. So please just understand that and understand we do have all the facts, and we're working hard in your favor to do this, to solve this problem. And again, it can be solved. It probably should have been solved a long time ago, but the process is happening. It's ongoing. It's real time right now. So please, I won't say trust us. I'll just say understand there are facts that are not in the public domain that we do know and have paid attention to.
Councilmember Heidingsfelder.
Where exactly are we in our agenda? Right, I'm lost a little.
We're on the new business item, discussion of mediation regarding zoning matters.
So, okay, that's good to know. Well, what I wanted to say here is the following, that I'm certainly very pleased to hear what I just heard, because that's not necessarily what I have heard from the mayor and some other council members over the last couple of months since April, to the point that I want to remind my colleagues of the fact that during our last executive session in July, we had a very intensive discussion about reaching out to the partners to sit down and talk, which has not been conveyed prior to that conversation, different to the statement that the mayor just made. And it was a very difficult discussion. Not everybody agreed with my statement that we have, now that things are getting more and more, legal, that we have to use the opportunity to sit down and see where there are compromises. Now, I know that I have been smeared by several people on IKEA for just even using the word of compromise, but this is what reasonable people do. This is what responsible people do, both in business or in public service. So I'm happy that we finally got around to the point where we are willing to sit down with our stakeholders to find compromise. Now, the question will be how we are going to do this, because I have some concerns in that respect that certainly we will discuss under this new business item. But I also want to say that I'm very concerned about the fact that we as council members learned about the fact that there will be mitigation through an email that I at least received from Russ Berner, but there was no communication from the mayor to council, no communication of our town attorney to council members, that beside the fact that there was willingness of the partners to consider sitting down, but that we are in the process of selecting a mitigator and selecting a time frame. I learned about this more by accident than by proper communication from the mayor to town council. And the reason why I'm so concerned about this is because the mayor has clearly not the authority. The authority for litigation and legal matters only resides with town council. And until this very meeting, I felt totally left out as a council member and as a representative of this community, totally left out of the discussions about mitigation, the mitigator itself, and even the fact what we want to achieve in the mitigation? Where are we willing to make compromises in the best interest of the community and the whole community, not just the community along Beachwalker Drive? So I'm very concerned about that, but I'm sure we will discuss this now in terms of how we want to proceed with the mitigation next week.
Thank you, Councilmember Heidingsfelder. Just want to correct the record in one regard, and my fellow council members can, I believe, attest to this. There was, at least a couple of weeks ago, emails that went around regarding the potential mediation and all the issues involved, scheduling, identifying the mediator, and I asked to schedule a meeting with each council member, and indeed, 3 of the council members availed themselves of that, gave them a full update, probably an hour to an hour and a half long each. I'm sorry that you didn't choose to avail yourself of that opportunity, but all of that was communicated when we got the information from council as to how things were progressing, the response we got from the applicant and their counsel, and once some progress had been made with regard to scheduling and identifying a mediator. Councilmember Kay.
That's not correct, but I state the fact. So,
Councilmember Kay.
Let's move on to Madeline.
I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to just wait till we get into executive session before making any comments. I am a little bit unclear as to the full scope of the communication that I got on the mediation process and who would be involved in that mediation and the decisions that were made around that. I really, either my memory's going or I didn't take part in that conversation. And I don't know that I'm able to do the best job I can representing the community if I'm not in fuller command of all of the communication that is taking place around this issue. So I'm looking forward to, and that said, I missed the last executive session. So, and that obviously was not available on Zoom for me to go back and watch. So I'm looking forward to what we hear in this upcoming executive session. And I do want to thank the people who took the time out of busy schedules to show up this morning and to give some really important feedback. I really appreciate that. So that's it for now.
Thank you. Any further council member comments?
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
The next agenda item is...
Whoa, hold on. When are we deciding? I thought that this agenda item would be an open discussion about how we want to organize the mitigation process by involving town council members.
I think council, I would turn to our town attorney and our outside counsel as to what they think is the most appropriate process to move forward from this standpoint.
Yeah, Mike, Mike, can you hear me, Michael?
Partly.
Yeah, so why don't we go into...
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Why don't we go into executive session and discuss this, and there'll be time afterwards for council member comments and citizens' comments, and so we can address more of that following the executive session.
Is that on the agenda of the executive session?
It is, yes.
Not when I'm reading it, but okay, we can certainly discuss that behind closed door if necessary.
I have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 State the purpose.
Oh.
I know it's on the agenda, but
The agenda isn't in front of me. Thank you. The purpose of the executive session is to receive legal advice under South Carolina Code 34470 concerning pending litigation. The council may take action after the executive session. Thank you.
like, hey, John, you got volunteered. Are you good with going too? When you walk through there, it's like walking through like a cup stuff. Like,
Yeah,
We tried it.
we tried.
We're not sure that
really works.
What about that HVAC maintenance contract?
Yeah, didn't we approve that, or did we?
Thank you and condolences for your patience, those who are remaining. I would entertain a motion to move out of executive session and back into regular business.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? No decisions, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I would note for the record that there was we've received advice and counsel from our town attorney and our outside counsel. No decisions were made, no votes were taken. But now we move to additional business. Are there any motions that council members would offer at this point in time?
Mr. Mayor, based on the advice of counsel, I would move that we authorize a team to attend the negotiations next week that would include the mayor pro tem, and the town planner.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Just for the record, I voiced concerns about this team, but I want to be a team player, and I agree.
Aye.
Thank you. I would just also, I think they
I
did.
heard Michael say yes.
Yes.
But
Madeline, did you vote?
I did, but I also had expressed a few concerns, but they've been overridden, so I vote yes.
The only thing I would note in closing is to emphasize to everyone in the community that this is the beginning of a process. The mediation itself is non-binding. We would hope to resolve or to address as many issues as possible, but anything ultimately coming out of the mediation process would have to come back before the town council subsequently, and there would obviously be a public process associated with that. Without any further comments from council members?
no.
No.
I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move, please.
Second?
We are
So
now.
no citizen comments?
My apologies. Did we have a second subs? Okay.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Councilmember comments, too.
We did, council, do we need to recommence the?
We can just, we can let them talk and then we
Okay.
can adjourn.
Okay. Okay. There are council member comments. We'd be delighted to hear from them now. I mean, citizen comments.
Citizen, yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yes, 181 Yellow Throat. I think the mayor should recuse himself based on the lawsuit that he's now involved in with his homeowners association regarding this matter. And I think town council should force the recusement of the mayor from this matter immediately. There can be no conflict of interest with this matter, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I don't know what level of engagement you have on the homeowners association there, but the fact that your homeowners association is now involved in a lawsuit does put you in direct ethical gray area with this matter. And as a citizen, I do not feel comfortable with the mayor representing us at any meeting with the developer, with anything regarding this matter at this point in time. Thank you.
How you doing again, Mike Tattersfield? So the only comments I have is just based on, when you made your comments, we were talking about parking. I'm a Cape owner. The biggest issue that I have as a Cape owner is I feel that we're sometimes being held hostage. You've got, you called it beyond parking. Well, there was an agreement with the Cape that we all abided by. and yet when we sign and close, it stopped. I understand that the partners allowed, additional parking, which seems rational, but I imagine they come with other things. There's contingencies probably on those parking. I would, again, as you're going through mediation, I don't want to be in the hostage. The Cape had probably pretty close to $300 million invested by owners. I'm just speaking as one. I'm not speaking for the owners. I'm speaking as one owner of a unit in the Cape. But if you can't solve the problem in front of us, and you want to have complexity of new development agreements with the partners, well, you can see that we're being held hostage on both sides. That is not correct. That is not what we signed up for. And I think one of my owners talked about you have an agreed process, and you're opening up potentially, as you start to word it, further lawsuits. You'll have I can't speak for the Cape, but you could almost imagine that we struggle to see this continue when you can solve it. And I'd be asking the partners the same question. Don't try to keep the Cape and its functioning as a process. Solve that. If you have other development issues or things you want to do with the town, you need to address those independently, and I don't want to see them intermingled. And we shouldn't expect that, given what we just went through, waiting for our property to be done, approved, and then changed as it's about to be open. So as you go through mediation, I'd ask you to think about that, because if it's all based on other commingling of other items, we didn't ask for that. That's not what we signed up for. And you're changing the process. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no further citizen comments, we are adjourned. Thank you.